As the election approaches, Donald Trump finds himself in an unprecedented position, polling at 48.5% in a national popular vote, just 6 percentage points behind Kamala Harris. This is a remarkable shift, considering Trump has never polled this high at any point in his political career. With just 2 weeks to go until Election Day, the momentum appears to be with Trump, raising important questions about what this means for both the popular vote and the all-important Electoral College. Trump's current polling is historic, reflecting a significant shift in the political landscape. In 2016 and 2020, Trump never came this close to his Democratic rival in the national popular vote during the final weeks of the campaign. His surge now places him within striking distance of Harris, the margin that could easily tighten even further. What makes this particularly notable is the context. In a race where there are far fewer undecided voters than in previous elections, Trump's rise suggests that his base remains energized and motivated, while Harris struggles to expand her appeal beyond certain voter blocks. Welcome to the Political Poll Show. I'm your host, Larry Elise. Today, breaking down the latest poll numbers that have Trump looking up. Of course, give us a thumbs up if you like our video, hit that subscribe button down below, and give us your thoughts in the comment section below. As we know, Harris did manage to pick up some undecided voters over time, particularly those who weren't fully behind Joe Biden, but also didn't support Trump. However, this hasn't been enough to make a significant dent in Trump's coalition. Trump's ability to hold onto his base while pulling in new support puts him in a stronger position than many anticipated. One of the key factors influencing this election is the early voting data, which provides a window into how the race might unfold. In states like Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, and North Carolina, Harris's campaign is facing significant challenges. These are states where she is failing to energize key voter demographics, particularly black voters. In some cases, early data suggests that black turnout could be lower than it was in 2016, which is a troubling sign for the Harris campaign, given how crucial these voters are to the Democratic base. In contrast, Trump is not only maintaining his support among white working-class voters, but also appears to be gaining traction in the black community. This shift, while still modest, could be crucial in swing states where margins are razor-thin. The lack of enthusiasm for Harris among key Democratic constituencies, coupled with Trump's increasing support, creates a problematic scenario for her campaign. The swing states will, as always, play a critical role in determining the outcome of the election. In 2016 and 2020, Trump was trailing in most of these states in the final days of the race. However, this time around, the situation looks very different. Trump is currently leading in the polls across every single swing state, a massive shift compared to previous election cycles. One of the most telling examples is Georgia. In both 2016 and 2020, polling in Georgia was relatively accurate compared to other states. And this year, Trump enjoys his largest lead there, according to polls like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This is significant as Georgia's polling history could serve as an indicator of how other swing states may lean. If Trump is leading by a solid margin in a state with traditionally accurate polling, it may signal broader support in other battlegrounds. The Harris campaign is in a tough spot. Despite her efforts, she hasn't been able to significantly chip away at Trump's coalition. In fact, early indications suggest that her campaign may be faltering in key areas Democrats need to secure victory. Without a strong showing among black voters and other core constituencies, Harris faces an uphill battle. The enthusiasm gap is real, and it is playing out in ways that could dramatically impact the election. Trump, on the other hand, is riding a wave of enthusiasm. His supporters remain motivated, and even as new controversies emerge, his base seems unfazed. If anything, the attacks on Trump, including accusations and last-minute smears, may only be hardening his support. Trump's ability to maintain his lead in the polls, while under constant attack from media and political opponents, speaks to the resilience of his coalition. One of the more notable attacks came from The Atlantic, which in 2020 released a story accusing Trump of disparaging fallen soldiers, calling them suckers and losers. This story dropped just as military ballots were being distributed, and while it made waves, it ultimately did little to shift the needle on that election. Now, as we head into the final stretch of this election, The Atlantic is back with another dubious claim. This time, the story centers around allegations that Trump expressed admiration for Hitler's generals, a claim allegedly sourced from John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff. The problem with this story, much like the suckers and losers narrative, is that it lacks corroboration. Even John Bolton, a former Trump official who had been highly critical of Trump, publicly refuted the earlier claims, adding to the doubts about the veracity of these new accusations. The fact that this story is emerging just weeks before the election, after millions of people have already cast their ballots, raises serious questions about its timing and intent. If this story were so damning, why wasn't it released earlier? Why wait until many voters have already made their decision? The likely answer is that these attacks are part of a broader strategy to throw anything at Trump in the hopes that something will stick. But the lack of substance behind these stories is becoming apparent, even to those who may not support Trump. The key question remains, will these last-minute stories and media attacks have any real impact on the election? The suckers and losers story in 2020 didn't significantly move voters. It's hard to see how this latest claim will fare any better. Trump supporters have proven to be incredibly resilient in the face of media onslaughts. Many view these attacks as politically motivated, and rather than being swayed, they are often galvanized by what they see as an unfair media narrative. The truth is, for more voters, the decision has already been made. There are very few undecided voters left in this race. And those who are still on the fence are unlikely to be swayed by stories that lack concrete evidence. In fact, Trump's base is likely to become even more motivated to vote, as they perceive these attacks as desperate moves by a political establishment that is losing its grip on power. As the election nears, one thing is clear. Trump's base is as energized as ever. Despite the media attacks, the controversies, and the relentless criticism, his supporters remain committed to seeing him reelected. This enthusiasm is reflected in the polling numbers, where Trump continues to hold strong in both the national popular vote and key swing states. For Trump supporters, this election is about more than just policy differences. It's about standing up against what they see as a corrupt political establishment. Constant attacks on Trump only serve to reinforce their belief that he is the candidate who can shake up the system and represent their interests. On the other side, the Harris campaign appears to be running out of options. Polling suggests that she is struggling to close the gap with Trump, particularly in key states that will decide the election. Last-minute media attacks and smears are a clear sign of desperation. When a campaign resorts to baseless claims and unsubstantiated stories, often because they have no other path to victory. The Harris' campaign reliance on these tactics underscores the challenges they face. They hope that switching out their candidate and distancing themselves from Biden's weaknesses would be enough to win. But as the election draws closer, it's become clear that this strategy isn't working. The enthusiasm that propelled the Democratic Party to victory in 2020 simply isn't there this time around. So what's next? As we move into the final days of the campaign, the stakes couldn't be higher. Trump is in a strong position, but nothing is guaranteed. His supporters need to remain vigilant and turn out in large numbers to ensure a victory. The early vote data suggests that the race is incredibly tight. And while Trump is leading in key states, voter turnout will ultimately decide the election. It's also likely that we'll see more last-minute drama as the opposition throws everything they can at Trump in a final bid to sway voters. However, much of this will likely be noise, desperate attempts to regain momentum in a race that is slipping away from them. Trump supporters understand this and are focused on one thing: getting out the vote. As the clock ticks down, Trump's campaign finds itself in an enviable position. His polling numbers are stronger than ever, his base is energized, and he's leading in key swing states. Meanwhile, the Harris campaign is struggling to find its footing, resorting to desperate tactics that are unlikely to change the outcome. The race isn't over yet. Trump supporters need to turn out in record numbers to secure a win. The momentum is on Trump's side, but voter turnout will be the deciding factor. Everything on the line, the next 13 days will be critical. The message from the Trump campaign is clear: get out and vote. The goal is to deliver a resounding victory, not just for Trump, but for the movement he represents. With the opposition in disarray, this election is Trump's to win, if his supporters show up and make their voices heard. Give me your thoughts on the latest polling numbers in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us coffee at buymeacoffee.com/twledger. Your support helps the channel grow, upgrade equipment, bring in new hosts, be able to pay them, and take the show on the road. As always, your support makes this channel grow, and your support is very much appreciated. Whether it's $1, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, $1,000, whatever you give is very much appreciated and goes right back into the channel. And as always, you can find us on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. So, before we go, so much for watching and listening, and see you next time.